Happy Thanksgiving or happy post-Thanksgiving to everyone listening tonight to our recorded interview. On the show tonight, we have Sara Frazetta on the show with us, one of the people or the person behind the website for the Frazetta Girls. If you've been to cons and prior to COVID and you've seen this booth set up, they are selling original artwork or prints and other things connected to the late great painter-artist Frank Frazetta, best known for possibly characters like Death Dealer, Conan the Barbarian. Thank you for coming on the show with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Probably the big question that people ask about what is Frazetta Girls is it's you and your mom who is now only dealing with like original artwork of your grandfather.
Yeah, so Frazetta Girls, it's a double entendre.
Okay.
My grandfather was known for his ladies, and he actually coined the term Frazetta Girls.
Yes.
So we thought that was kind of fun. And then, of course, we are his girls, so we were like, what better name than Frazetta Girls for our company? And yeah, that's pretty much the story behind it. The name, not the company.
When did it get founded?
We founded Frazetta Girls officially in 2014.
And was it just like your girls were just sitting on like the piles of his artwork and, there's obviously, I don't remember when the documentary came out. What was that, 2006, 2007? And then a few years later started to doing the site and really kind of market his talent a lot.
Well, I wish it was an easy story like that, and I'll try to keep it brief. But you
don't have to keep it. You don't have to keep it brief. If you got a story to tell a story.
I'll try to pick the important parts. So my grandmother began a merchandising business in the late 1970s.
Wow.
And she started the posters, the calendars. Then later, obviously, got into statues, T-shirts, and lighters, you name it. So she was running that with my uncle Frankie. Now he's the oldest of their four children. And my grandmother passed away in 2009 and left everything in a really, chaotic way. She didn't leave a will. She didn't appoint any of the original paintings to anyone. And my grandfather was the artist, and he was not the businessman, so he had never, for context, he had never paid a bill in his life. So, now leaving the estate to him was quite a nightmare, and he didn't really know what to do. I mean, he had a little bit of dementia by that time. And so anyway, it ended in a huge legal battle between my uncle and the three other children, one being my mother. And that battle was going on while my grandpa was alive. My grandpa passed away in 2010. This was only a year after my grandma had passed. And then the fighting went on for another, 2 years after that. So when that finally all got settled, the dust settled, and everyone was like, okay, we'll just split the artwork. They did have me involved a little bit in that back end of the process. I think I was 21 at the time. And they were like, Sarah, you're a natural mediator. You love Grandma and Grandpa. Come on in and help us separate the art. I'm like, okay. But and I think at this time they were just so fed up with $60,000 a month lawyer bills.
Oh.
They were like, the legacies, the original art's going to be gone because we're just having to pay these lawyers an insane amount of money each month. So then they wanted to bring me in, and I was like, I wanted to help. I am a natural mediator, and it was sad to see my family in the state. We had grown up very close. We're all very Sicilian, tight-knit family.
None of this is in the documentary, that's for sure.
No. And the documentary, I believe, came out in 2001.
Oh, really? Oh, my God. By the way, I was shocked to find a DVD copy of it at a secondhand store because I was on eBay trying to find one. It was like $40 or $50 for the documentary, and nobody had it on streaming.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, we actually have to. We've been talking about that a lot this past week. We need to reach out to Lance. He's the documentary maker and figure out what he's doing because he said he's been building a website for it, but it's been like 5 years now, and I'm like, what's going on?
And updating the documentary also would be good. I think.
Yes.
I think and I don't just mean with like his passing, but also stuff that's happening today, like the comic book, which we'll get into in a few minutes.
Oh yeah, no, a lot of fun stuff.
I have a copy of the comic book right here with me.
Now, did you get the newest comic book series that we put out?
I don't have the one with the girl on the cover, the sci-fi girl. I have Death Dealer.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. Now I have to send you some of our unbranded ones. You need those exclusive Frazetta Girl variants. But
go back to your story. Sorry, we'll get into all that. That will be great for the listeners for Christmas too.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, so that after everything settled, my mom had come to me and she said, I know you're in a weird stage. I just had graduated college. I was working in a post-production studio, and I really wanted to get into the entertainment field. Like that's been my dream my whole life. And so when she asked me, this was the time that they had just forged the deal with Robert Rodriguez, the film director, to remake the Fire and Ice movie that my grandfather and Ralph Bakshi had made in the 1980s. And I was like, this is intriguing. Always my grandfather was just grandpa. My grandma was just grandma. I never looked at the business or thought of the business or thought of the original art. It was just my grandma was very good at keeping everything like a vault. We didn't know how much things sold for. We'd get our $100 in our Christmas card, and that was about it. It was never. They lived very humbly. There weren't many visitors at the museum, so I just never knew his level of fame and how many people he had inspired. Obviously he was very, very famous in the 60s and 70s, but even now many people know, I know Frazetta, or at least they know the image, like a Death Dealer or the Conan the Barbarian, if not the name.
Right, right.
So that being an entertainment freak and not knowing crazily that my grandfather had influenced most of the people that I looked up to, I was kind of intrigued by this, and I'm like, okay, Mom, I'll get into the business. So we really started with a single Frazetta T-shirt with the signature across it and the vintage posters that I had mentioned my grandma made back in the late 70s. And we went to a Comic-Con in Miami, and we just Robert Rodriguez gave us a banner that he had made when he was out, promoting the artwork and doing some promo for the potential movie he was going to be remaking. And that's how we started. That's the origin story. We went to the Comic-Cons with just two items, and fans started really teaching me about my grandfather as the artist, and of course I could give them insights of him as the grandfather and who I knew. But it is a fun journey. It's an interesting journey.
And it's also funny that the other reason I wanted to have you and your mother on the show, I wasn't sure if this. Because I'm trying to go through the lineage, because I didn't realize you also had many brothers and sisters and stuff. But Eleanor Kelly is a Massachusetts native.
She is.
And we're in Massachusetts, so you have some Massachusetts in you.
Yeah, she did say Boston. She talked the Sarah, that was the Boston, the Wicked, all that all came into the family, and then you have the New York. So yeah, a lot of accents in the family. And, yes, real Irish. My grandma was Irish and English and, all kinds of Boston in her.
There's a photo of Brittany, Danielle, and you at the 2015 East Coast Comic-Con. Was that one of the last cons that you did? Because you said you haven't done one prior to COVID for a while.
So that was 2015. Our last one was San Diego Comic-Con in 2017.
Okay.
That was 2019 we went. But I don't know if we set up. I don't think we set up.
Now, I also heard that the biggest piece that has sold of his artwork sold for over $5 million. It's the original Egyptian queen.
Mm-hmm.
That's
that is true.
crazy.
$5.4 million.
That is unbelievable.
That was the record-breaking painting. The highest number my grandpa saw before he passed away was the Conan the Destroyer. It sold for $1 million.
To Kirk Hammett.
Conan, I don't know if the Destroyer did not go to Kirk Hammett. Actually, Conan the Conqueror, also known as the Berserker, went to Kirk Hammett.
Oh, okay.
And I don't believe that sold for, I think it sold for around $600,000, but that wasn't on record. Of course, my grandpa was very pleased for a painting going for $600,000, but it was that $1 million, real Sicilian. He's like, $1 million, can you believe it? And yeah, he never would have been able to spend that in his lifetime because he was very frugal, but he was really excited nonetheless.
Now, what's funny is that I've seen the images for so long, but it wasn't until somebody did some video about your grandfather on YouTube, I don't remember who it was, that made me go, I don't think I've ever known who the artist was behind these paintings. And this was maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. And I decided to do a deep dive into Frank's life, and that's when I found the documentary. I was just like, oh, well, I'll just watch this documentary, and it'll tell me everything I need to know. And I was just like, how did I miss this great creator for so long? And I just became obsessed ever since.
That's so cool. A recent discovery. I mean, 6 years ago. That's crazy.
Maybe 7. Okay, so this is 2022, so maybe like 8 years ago.
Okay, still relatively in the last decade.
Yeah, in the last decade. Yeah, it just never occurred to me to look up who, this, again, famous movie posters and stuff like that, and other things, and mass market paperbacks.
Oh my God, his career, I mean, it goes back to the 1940s when he started with his little snowman comic. I mean, he was working at basically 8 years old. I mean, he was just, it's a product of his environment and just him being a go-getter. But I mean, back then the kids had to work. It wasn't really a choice. They're like, you better go make some money and bring it home. So yeah, he's had a huge career. And I do wonder, I wonder if you saw it was, maybe the comic book girl. Was it the pretty girl with the pink hair that did a great video on him?
Yes. I think that was, Comic Girl 19.
Yeah, I love her. Danica, she's great. I saw that video and I was like, oh, I have to aspire to educate fans in this fashion, but it of course takes. I know her. I need to ask her what that budget was. I'm curious.
That was Greater Creators, I think she did it on, and that is not a series that later on she's like admitted that is a series later on she has admitted that she does not love talking about. I guess it was not great behind the scenes.
That's even more intriguing. Now I have to really cry.
But now I hear that, and that has inspired me to write on a TV series that I'm currently working with, well, mostly by myself, but trying to find partners for to work on with about people like your grandfather, not necessarily your grandfather, because actually he has his entire own documentary, and there's a lot of people who can look up easy stuff about Frank, but other people like Frank, people that are like the Stanleys, like the Jack Kirbys, that you don't know about. Like recently we had Carlos Pacheco pass away. He's a longtime artist for DC and Marvel, but a lot of people don't know his name. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's great that you're doing that. It's true. There's so many artists. I mean, you go back to even like Norman Lindsay. And all the people Joseph Clement Cole, the guys that inspired my grandfather, and there's really nothing on them. I mean, when I'm trying to dig and just do little, my Frazetta Fridays or my blog posts even, it's like, man, there's nothing on these other artists. Even, Ralph Mayo, who was really instrumental in my grandfather's, career in the beginning with John Gunta, like these were all guys that were teaching my grandfather the ropes, and there's nothing on them. And I'm like, that's kind of devastating. Got to get in the archives. So I'm glad you're doing that. That's awesome.
Do they ever use? I don't read the current Marvel comic series with Conan. Do they ever use any of that artwork for alternate covers? And it's the I know they're doing the Robert E. Howard estate or whoever owns it in France or something like that is gonna start doing other comics. Are they gonna start using like Frank's artwork in any way?
I hope so. We have a close connection with those guys, and they just took it, to Titan from Marvel. And I'm really excited to see what they're going to come up with. I do know that they really want to hold true to the original Robert E. Howard stories and make it as close as possible. And, like I said, we've really formed a nice connection with them over the last couple of years, and there are definitely talks about it. I just don't know what I can say at this point.
One of the posters I didn't realize he had done it for until I saw it in the credits. His name pop up. The Fearless Vampire Killers, the Roman Polanski movie.
Yep.
But I remember it not being meant. I don't remember it popping up in the documentary. But when I got the Blu-ray and I was watching through the credits for that film, I was like, oh hey.
Yeah, he didn't really like to talk about his movie posters that much because he felt like he didn't have the creative freedom with them. It was a character. It was this. It wasn't. He didn't have the freedom like he had with magazines or paperback covers, and but he had to do those movie posters because they paid the best,
right? By
far.
Oh, of course. How did you girls get the comic books going now with Opus?
Yeah, Opus. So we went the independent route with Opus, and it was really simple. We got an introduction email. And it was the owner, Lexi Leon, and he had been telling us what he had been working on creatively with endeavors with Iron Maiden, heavy metal, and it just really gave us this long version of his vision of a comic series. And it really aligned with what we wanted to do for years, but we had been we had been stuck mostly from we didn't understand our legal rights with a lot of the things that we were doing. Like I said, we had come in with a single T-shirt and posters and no formality whatsoever. So this has just been a lot of uncovering, peeling the onion. That we also had to go back to the lawyers, and that's just a necessity in business, and kind of just see where everything stood. And then we had to figure out how we could get a comic done in what our limitations were within the legalities within the family and how everyone divided up. So Lexi was really cool, and so many we had been in talks with quite a few companies over the years when they were all like, the dynamic of your family, I don't really want to touch this. Some of the writers would say, I don't know about the ownership. So no one really would take a chance with Frazetta coming back into comics again. And Lexi was like I said, he was like the first one that was like, let's do it. Who cares? Let's move forward and see what happens, and we can get through this. So he was the first one to actually to risk it all, and man, has it been rewarding to see someone that could come in and jump those barriers and not have a limited mindset, a narrow mindset.
Now, do you have any input into the creative direction of it all, or are you guys just supplying the alternate covers, which is also very funny? Frank's covers are cover B, and cover A is the interior artist, but I guess it's because it's the interior artist that would make sense.
Yeah, I don't really know how they're choosing that or why with cover A, B, and Frank's not cover A. It's a good question. I'll have to ask Lexi. But yeah, we're involved in the creative. All approvals when it comes down to the script, the art, goes from pencils to inks to colors, and just reviewing it. And I kind of it's been a lot to learn. I was never really into comics myself, and now obviously it's your story, it's your baby. Mitch Iverson's the writer, and Mitch had a barbarian story that he had written years prior that never really took off, and he was like, I think this could be a good match for the Frazetta. The Frazetta Death Dealer. Death Dealer is obviously its own entity in the story. It's the cursed helmet is Death Dealer, and then we have Kura the Barbarian, who's taken over by this cursed helmet. So and really, as a creative team, none of us had ever read the Silky novels that came before it. We never read, and I read very recently the Glenn Danzig treatment, the Veritech treatment. But Image Comics, I just had never gotten into the stories. And like I said, I think it's because I just separated Grandpa from his career, and he didn't really want to talk about his career or the merchandising business with us. It was more about his other interests. So we just kind of came at it from a very fresh perspective where, like I said, none of us had gone, we didn't want to take anything from the past. Some fans say there's some similarities, but you can only take it in so many directions with this character, Death Dealer.
Yeah, and then there's another one coming. It's in the back. I don't know. Dawn Attack.
Yes, sci-fi series.
Yes, which is a very Frazetta girl. She's got basically like a chainmail bikini on.
Yeah. No one wears pants in the Frazetta land.
No.
That's how it is.
Pants are a bad thing. Take your clothes off if you're coming in here.
Take your clothes off. We want to see those nice muscular legs and behind.
Do you guys ever do you girls get any pushback when you're selling the art and the posters with these completely naked women, and even though none of them are really almost none of them are really damsels in distress. They are when it comes to Conan, but when they're standing on their own, do you ever get just crappy reactions from people, especially people who are just very conservative, or women who feel exploitation in art by men is bad and they want to make a point about it badly, but you're two women running a company to honor your late great grandfather.
I mean, yeah, that's a great point. It's a woman-owned company. It's people that are ignorant.
It's a woman-owned company selling naked women art. Let's just point that out.
Hey, that's my vision.
It's your
of
bread and
empowerment.
butter. It pays the mortgage. You put food in your mouth, selling naked pictures of beautiful women.
Well, you know what it is? I just tell them, I say, I've seen it a couple times on Twitter. Most of his fan base is just so incredibly, like, they're so educated on more so than I am at times, like where, you know, they know the comics where he started. They'll say, oh no, this painting was dated in 1972. Look back again, Sarah. So they're very, very educated people on Frazetta. But you'll get a couple people that are the newcomers on Twitter, and they'll make a dumb comment about him being sexist. And I said, please go into his catalog and tell me where the men aren't exactly featured in the same manner without pants, with they're completely represented in either like a sexual way or everything in my grandfather's paintings, even the beasts, they have abs. I mean, I'm looking at right now at this, one called Captive Princess, and these monkey beast creatures have 8-packs. I mean, so he loved the anatomy on men and women. So again, it's like you can't really say that when you're looking at Frazetta. And some of the kids are noticing. They're like, yeah, your grandpa really loved to draw men too. I'm like, yes, he did. He's good. I'm glad you noticed, because it's just there's no discrimination in it when it comes to sexuality of a female.
No, I mean, God, Conan's not wearing anything. I mean, let's face it.
Exactly. The men are naked too.
Yeah, I don't ever want to hear someone saying that, because it's like, have you seen Conan? I mean, it's
exactly.
What thread are you pulling on? Because I don't know. I'm a big fan of Jim Valiant stuff. I've had Jim on the show. He does Tarot Witch of the Black Rose, and that's a lot of like incredibly like triple D busty women most of the time. The guys he draws a little goofy or whatever, but the women are always, and they're also, by the way, representative of like, you know, his wife and things like that. So it's an honor of, you know, a certain kind of female as well. So I always find that to be respectful, but I hear people like make comments and stuff like that, and I'm just kind of like tired of it.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to like get into a pissing contest with someone about it, because I'm sure I'll lose in the pantheons of internet back and forth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Twitter, you never win.
No, you're not going to win. I recently had somebody kind of throw back at me some artwork that they didn't find was appropriate for the story, and I kind of agreed with them. But later on, you know, it kind of comes up again with a different person about the artwork, and I'm just kind of like, that's what I told him to draw, and that's what he drew. You know, and it's incredibly busty, but it's not sexualized in an overly ridiculous way like hentai or something.
I mean, yeah, this whole culture now of like anti-sex. I mean, I get it. You want to have morals and values in society for sure, but it's like, guys, we this is how we're made. If we completely stray away from it, don't you kind of worry that there will be no more humans? Like we can't be anti-sex. This is nature we're in,
right? And if you want to read a story like Lumberjanes, which is about a group of female comic book characters that are not overly sexualized in any kind of way that needs to represent the story, then that's fine, and I read that story too. Or Paper Girls, which is underage girls going on a sci-fi adventure, but at the same time, I can still enjoy a book like Tarot Witch of the Black Rose, or Death Dealer, or Dawn Attack.
Exactly. A little bit for everybody. Do you want to, just go into, depending on your mood, whatever you want to pick up during the day.
Dawn Attack
the Dawn Attack's arriving. It should have been arriving in 3 days, but it is arriving on, I believe, December 7th now. Fingers crossed.
What's your, of all the pieces your grandfather did, what's your favorite?
Favorite piece is his Golden Girl. He did that. It's a watercolor, a personal piece he did in the 1950s, and it's just incredible. In every sense of the word, incredible. That is what Golden Girl is. I mean, the way that he worked with watercolors, I've dabbled in painting a little bit, and I just can't believe what he did with watercolors. It literally blows my mind. I'm like, how? But it just has a little bit of everything that I like. I mean, he has all the different animals. He's got a frog. He's got some birds. He's got the wolves that look kind of like my German shepherds. And then there's just this fearless, beautiful porcelain skin blonde girl hanging out in the midst of it all in somewhere that looks like the Swiss Alps. So it's like if I could be anywhere and be anybody, it would be Golden Girl, and that's why it's my favorite.
It's either Death Dealer, there's one of a woman in like a blue sheer kind of top-looking thing. I can't remember the name of it, but anything with vampires I'm like heavily into. I have 2 T-shirts with Frank stuff on it. One is his Dracula one, and one is the black and white Vampirella.
Oh yeah, good taste. No, it's I love in terms of the horror. I love his Woman with Sight. That one with the black cloak is just she's kind of, I don't know if she's a vampire, but she's definitely demonic and has a snake around her arm, and it's so good. And that Dracula one, I mean, do you know that it's like 8.5 by 11, the original, like super super tiny?
Really? Wow.
Which is it's insane. Like, how did he get that much detail into that small of a canvas?
At some point, because you guys have been the girls have been selling the artwork, and the artwork got so divided up with the family, which honestly sounds really ridiculous, but you know it's just what happens when you know someone like this caliber kind of passes away. Do you ever think about like in another decade or two you'll run out of the original artwork?
Oh man, I hope not. I mean, my mom's doing a pretty good job at preserving. I can't really like speak for everyone else. I have a close relationship with my Uncle Bill and my Aunt Heidi. And, you know, they try not to sell the art for the sake of selling the art. I mean, they're trying to preserve it as best they can. Of course, they also have the mentality of like, you know, we have one life. We want to live comfortably. My grandparents always sold the art. My grandma liked to say that she didn't sell the art because it was a good marketing tool back then. She'd have to pay people come to the museum. Oh, this isn't for sale. And that's how she'd get the price higher. They had always been selling the art. My grandpa held on to the ones that he really cared about. And so I don't think that they're going to run out of art. I'm sure their collections will get much smaller as time goes on, but I do see a lot of the originals going to other collectors who will exhibit their collections as well. They had a really great exhibit in Spain recently with a ton of pen and inks that had been sold way before I was born. And so I had never gotten a chance to see those in person. And I was just happy that those were out for the public. Kirk Hammett, who you mentioned earlier, he has quite a collection. Robert Rodriguez has a large collection. And, you know, Robert Rodriguez was exhibiting I think he has like 13 oil paintings now, somewhere between 10 and 13. And he had his on exhibit to the public for a little bit during South by Southwest when we were working with him. And now he has them just for private showings. So producers he's working with, directors he's working with, he brings them to the house and actors and shows them his collection and introduces them to Frazetta. George Lucas has a big collection that I just heard today, actually, that his museum just got pushed back now till 2025, the opening. So that's kind of sucks, but George has, I think, like 8 originals, and there's a rumor going around that he might have bought Egyptian Queen. So, I'm hopeful that anywhere that these pieces go, that they will go to good homes, and these collectors will want to show them to the world. God willing, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
You know, what's funny is that a few years ago I heard about like the Frazetta Museum, and is that still around? Does that still exist?
Yeah, so there's a Frazetta Museum in Pennsylvania,
okay.
And that was the last location my grandparents opened. They opened that right next to their house because of my grandpa's health conditions. My grandma never learned to drive a car, which is very strange. So they made it right next to their house so they could just walk to work on the weekends. So that actually is just housing my Uncle Frank Jr.'s collection at this time.
Cool.
Yeah, so I think they have 30 or so originals and, I don't know, maybe like 15 oils. And then, of course, they have like a lot of reproductions in there. But I think they have it set up right now where it's like a retrospective of his life. You go through it, and even though there's a lot of reproductions, it's still a good experience to go in and get like the full story of his life. And then I recently helped my mom open the museum location in Boca Grande, Florida. That's about an hour south of where I am right now. And so she has her collection of approximately 20 originals in there. And then the Stroudsburg building, which was the original location of the museum. This is a downtown building my grandparents bought when the merchandising business was taking off, and then kind of the museum was an afterthought. They're like, maybe we should, take them out of the house and put them somewhere safe and fireproof it and have the fans come see the museum. But that location is owned by my Uncle Bill, and he's thinking of having a little museum that's kind of like appointment only. They're making an effort to keep everything and preserve the legacy as best as they can.
People can go to FrazettaGirls.com to get more information about your grandfather, as well as to order any all products and to find out if there's any displays or anything coming up, like cons or anything like that, correct?
Correct, and I give weekly updates on my Frazetta Fridays. I have a live stream that I do, and then which is usually on Facebook and YouTube, and a show that comes out occasionally and will hopefully become more regular, and that is Frazetta Fridays with Frazetta Girls, and that is solely on, well, actually it is on YouTube, and some will be on Spotify.
Excellent.
That is where you can stay up to date.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the show. Definitely pass on our happy Thanksgivings and holidays to your mother as well.
Oh, thank you. I will. I appreciate it so much.